everyone. Welcome to this edition of the NBA Breakdown on your big Wednesday. We've got a massive 13-game slate with a ton of players to discuss. So before I dive right in, I need you to follow us on YouTube at the Breakdown15. It's just Breakdown15. That's the username. Also, check out RT Fantasy Sports blog on Twitter for your best collection of fantasy sports news, articles, and data analysis. Also, check out scorestreak.com, a different way of doing NBA daily fantasy. I played there last night. It's excellent. It's more like prop betting on point totals, rebound totals, assist totals, as opposed to combining them all like FanDuel or DraftKings. It was very fun. So go do that. Go to scorestreak.com and make an account. It was just excellent stuff. So let's just jump right into the games. First game, we're going to have Phoenix, Orlando. And when I was looking at this one, I was going over which Sun players to pick. And I came up with some names. And then I realized that I came up with their entire starting lineup. Brandon Knight, Eric Bledsoe, Alex Len, PJ Tucker, Markieff Morris. All candidates to have great games against these struggling magicians. Literally, their entire starting five is good to go. As far as players to target for the Magic go, it's a little tougher. I definitely think Toby Harris has been seeing a ton of minutes lately. He's in around 35 minutes. And if a guy with that talent level gets multiple games of 35-plus minutes, I think he's gonna have a decent game tonight. As long as the minutes are there for Toby Harris, he's going to have a decent amount of production. He's priced reasonably at $6K, so look for him to have a solid game. Nick Vooch, I would still expect a double-double tonight from the big man, but for the most part, Alex Len has shown he's a very, very capable defender. So take that for what it's worth. Nick Vooch, still a fine play, still a double-double candidate, but for Orlando, my player to target is probably Tobias Harris, and of course the entire Suns roster for this one. Moving on to our next game, we have the Knickerbockers versus the Pacers, and on a 13-game slate, you can find better games to target. I think after what we saw last night, Andrea Bargnani, he's definitely worth a fade or two today. That was not a great performance. And David West, Roy Hibbert, definitely play solid defense. So I don't think I'm feeling a very good game for the big guy. Don't expect anything incredible from him. Man, all I was feeling as of yesterday was Andrea Bargnani, but after that game last night, he definitely threw me off him a little bit. As far as the Pacers go, I think C.J. Miles is very capable of reaching 25 fantasy points. George Hill also exceeding his value threshold in a big way. So look to target George Hill tonight, definitely as your prime pacer. He's been averaging 41 fantasy points the last 3 games. So at least for the moment, he's underpriced right now. So be sure to capitalize on that. George Hill's definitely your top play for the Pacers in this game. And that's probably all I'm going to recommend from this one. So for our next game, we've got Utah versus Boston. I'm excited to see what the bigs from Utah are going to do against this undersized front court for Boston. Rudy Gobert is an excellent player to target, and he's coming off of a career game last night. So Rudy Gobert is definitely a prime candidate to have an excellent game if you're playing contests, even cash games. Rudy Gobert is an excellent cash game center. Derek Favors is another guy playing tremendous basketball. He had 43 fantasy points in each of his last 2 games. Utah has a pretty stout defense, so I think you should target your Boston players accordingly. They've been maybe the best team on defense efficiency-wise over the last month. So targeting players against Utah is not a very good strategy. So be careful when you're picking these Boston players. For the Jazz, Gordon Hayward, Derek Favors, Rudy Gobert, all excellent options tonight. Let's move on to Charlotte versus Brooklyn. Mo Williams has been an excellent player to target over the last couple weeks. I'm going to avoid Mo in this one. Maybe I'll give him a couple looks. But Brooklyn has been defending the point guard slot very, very well in their past few games. Darren Williams playing a lot more minutes. He only gave up 2 points to Mike Conley, 17 and 7 to Wall, 40 fantasy points to Steph Curry, which of course is not a great game for Steph Curry by any standards this season. Darren Williams limited him to just around 40 fantasy points. So look, it appears Darren Williams is playing excellent defense, and he's definitely a very capable defender. He's always played pretty solid defense. So yeah, I would avoid Mo Williams a little bit more in this one. Big Al Jefferson is another fantastic guy to target. His price tag's on the lower side of where he normally resides, so definitely capitalize on Big Al. Starting to play better. Capitalize on Big Al Jefferson while you can. Cleveland versus Toronto. Obviously, you got to like LeBron in this one, but if Lowry doesn't play, I like Kyrie too. I mean, I don't think Kyrie is necessarily the best player to target right now with LeBron James, but he's clearly capable of blowing up and winning someone that contest. Man, it all sort of depends on if Lowry's going to play or not. I wouldn't look to target too many Raptors this evening. Cleveland looks pretty tough right now. They're just blowing teams out of the water. I mean, DeRozan finally broke out of his slump, but did he really break out of his slump? I mean, a shooting guard blowing up against Philly, it's not necessarily breaking out of a slump. He's just going out there and doing your job. Philly's atrocious against the shooting guard position. But if Lowry's out, DeRozan still makes a good play just because of his role in the offense. But there's better options out there at the shooting guard slot tonight. And this game it's going to be a good benchmark to see where DeRozan's actually at, because you sort of got to discount that game against Philly. Everyone has a good game against Philly. I'll be interested to see what he's doing tonight. As far as the Cleveland side of the ball, target whoever you've been continuing to target. They just distribute the ball very well. They've got three fantasy studs: Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James. It's tough to pick them because they've got three people who can go out there and on any given night can blow up. So it's tough. But LeBron James probably going to have the most fantasy points for Cleveland in this one. You can pretty safely say that on most nights when he plays. Moving on to Memphis versus Houston. I think Terrence Jones is still in a good spot for his price tag. Obviously, got the Bigs versus Memphis. They're a tough matchup for anyone. But if Zebo's out again, definitely target Donatas Motiejunas and Terrence Jones. Probably not going to play Pat Beverly in this one. Probably not going to play Mike Conley in this one. I definitely think targeting Marc Gasol is a smart play, because this Houston team's severely undersized right now. I just think that Marc Gasol is an absolute lock for 35 fantasy points tonight. And also, let us not forget, how can you not look to target James Harden at home? Coming off that one-game suspension, so he'll be fresh. Hope he probably won't be embarrassed. He should be a little embarrassed after getting caught kicking LeBron in the nuts on national television. That's not a good way to look. But yeah, I mean, how can you not target James Harden at home? What he's been doing is just absolutely ridiculous. So let's move on to Denver versus Minnesota. Denver, they won a game. You guys see that? Good for them. I'm not going to jump on this ship. I'm still going to avoid the Nuggets like the plague. But Kenneth Faried makes an intriguing contest play in this new situation without the coach. You could just tell that something about their relationship with Brian Shaw and Kenneth Faried, man, it was just not a good situation. Kenneth Faried was playing with almost zero confidence under Brian Shaw. It was a bad situation for everyone, really. But he's gone. So if the Timberwolves, if Kevin Martin sits out, plug in Gary Neal. Gary Neal almost had a double-double from the shooting guard position last game. Gorgie Dang makes a great play with no Pekovic. Also, Rubio and Wiggins certainly in play against this lacking Denver team. That's all. That's probably all I've got for that game. It's pretty straightforward, that one. Kenneth Faried, definite contest play, and then the starting five for the Minnesota Timberwolves, definitely in play in that one. So moving on to Detroit versus New Orleans. This one sort of hinges on what Anthony Davis is going to do. So for these guys, I would wait until you have word. He's probable, I believe, or he's been upgraded to questionable. If Anthony Davis plays, he makes an excellent target. This is going to be a fun night if Anthony Davis comes back, because we'll have a Russell Westbrook coming back playing with the mask on, James Harden, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Chris Paul. We've got multiple candidates to get in the 60s today, so I'm excited for that. For Detroit, I like Monroe over Drummond in this one. I think Ashik is gonna box out Drummond. No one usually he's tough to box out because he's obviously a gigantic human being, but I think Ashik will play pretty disciplined basketball against Andre Drummond. Obviously, Drummond, no, he's not going to stop him from getting his nightly double-double. But I just think the fantasy points are probably going to limit it in the high 30s for Andre Drummond tonight. I don't think his ceiling is quite as high as it normally is in this one. I like Monroe over Drummond, honestly. But your play for the Detroit Pistons is clearly Mr. Reginald Jackson. He's going to be chucking. He's going to get those stats up. He's in a better situation right now. He can finally start being the guy. So target Reginald Jackson accordingly. If Davis comes back, look to target him. Tyreek Evans playing at home definitely boosts his value. He's a much statistically a much better player at home. And if Davis returns, obviously I would avoid Ajinka. He's just with Davis back, he's not worth a play. Moving on, that's all I've got for that game. Moving on to Philadelphia versus Oklahoma City. This is definitely a very, very interesting game from a fantasy point perspective because Oklahoma City, no Durant, they're not playing that incredible. I mean, Russell Westbrook, whenever you have a guy who's taking 35 shots a game, sometimes Russell Westbrook, he misses 20 of them. And when you have a single character on your squad who misses over 20 shots a game, it's really, really hard to win that game. I don't care who you're playing. Even if you're playing freaking Philadelphia. If Russell Westbrook comes out and shoots 13 of 34, this is going to be a really, really close game. So obviously target Russell Westbrook. Going to be wearing that mask. That'd be pretty cool to see him crack 80 fantasy points again in his mask. But look, I mean, this sort of hinges on if it's going to be close or not. If Russell Westbrook gets 4 quarters, it's going to be a joke. If Russell Westbrook gets 3 quarters, he could definitely not necessarily hit his value. But honestly, you got to hope for Russell Westbrook to have a bad game in this one. Because if Russell Westbrook has a bad game, he's still going to get 60 fantasy points, and it's going to be a close game. So that's all I've got for Russell Westbrook. Serge Ibaka, another guy you got to target. He's going to have a great game. Philadelphia cannot defend the power forward, and they're the worst rebounding team in the NBA. So Serge Ibaka, by all intents and purposes, is a fine play at the power forward slot. Dion Waiters makes a solid play at 4.1K against just the second worst defender of shooting guards behind Sacramento. Philadelphia is atrocious. Westbrook, Ibaka, Dion Waiters, I definitely think those are your guys to target. As far as the Philadelphia side of the basketball goes, Nerlens Noel is your prime candidate to target. He's been having a little string of consistency, which is what you like to see from guys like him. But, man, I can't in good faith tell you to play very many 76ers in this game. So, moving on to Miami versus Los Angeles. It's hard not to love Goran Dragic in this game. I mean, the problem, this is just it's such a tough, because every single night where Los Angeles plays, I pick the point guard playing them. But it looks like we've got 3 point guards to choose from. So, I mean, Tyler Johnson had an amazing game last time. Not sure if he's going to repeat that performance. I can't necessarily say yes or no to Tyler Johnson. Yikes. I'd probably lean towards no. Yikes, it's just scary. Goran Dragic, definitely a candidate to do well, but he's certainly not in a good situation with this slow-paced Miami team. And Mario Chalmers, honestly, for $4,500, I like him. And if you scoffed when I said I like him just now, I understand where you're coming from, but if you did indeed scoff, I return your scoff with a scoff of my own, because I mean, I don't think there's words in this language to describe the way Los Angeles defends point guards. They just, without fail, they give up massive games on a nightly basis to opposing point guards. So I think Mario Chalmers is. I think all three point guards are honestly in a good slot for Miami. This will be a good litmus test for Los Angeles at this point in the season, seeing if they can give up value to three separate point guards in the same game. I can't wait to see what happens there. As far as the Lakers go, Jeremy Lin, 48 fantasy points in his last two games at around 4K. So that's just incredible. My advice, honestly, today, I would probably fade Jeremy Lin in this against this Miami team. I don't picture Jeremy Lin. I mean, Linsanity may be back, but I don't think Jeremy Lin is going to necessarily do that again. That's just he could definitely hit his value threshold. He's not a bad player to target, but if you're trying to win one of those big contests and you're playing Jeremy Lin, I don't think that's necessarily the way you're going to get it done. Miami just defends the guard slot so well. Let's move on to Sacramento versus San Antonio. Sacramento coming off of a thrashing of the Knickerbockers last night. That's no surprise there. The Knicks are horrible. Playing a Spurs team that is really struggling. Definitely play Boogie in your lineups. Put him in most of your lineups. The Spurs have been they haven't even been low key poor against big guys. They've been just outright atrocious against big guys. Big guys have been eating the Spurs alive. Look to play Boogie in all your lineups. Not all your lineups, most of your lineups. I think he's a lock for 50 fantasy points. Also because he's going to see a solid amount of minutes. And Boogie, for some reason, when the Sacramento Kings are down by 20 in the fourth quarter, Boogie plays. But when they're up by 20, he does not necessarily play. So the Spurs should probably be avoided for the most part, with one exception. Danny Green, Sacramento, they're the Lakers of the shooting guard position. I mean, the Danny Green at 4,200 could have an excellent game here. The Sacramento Kings are the worst team defending the shooting guard slot. 7,400 is also a fair price tag for Kawhi Leonard. I would look for him to get around 35, 40 fantasy points tonight. He had a good game against the Sacramento Kings last time, and he also did a pretty solid job of stifling Rudy Gay. So I would probably avoid Rudy Gay and look to target DeMarcus Cousins because Kawhi Leonard is definitely not a defender you want on you if you're trying to score the basketball. Let's go to the next one, Portland versus the Clippers. Starting with the Blazers, LaMarcus Aldridge is definitely a great play. He's almost too good of a play because the Clippers have been really bad defending the power forward position. And I think there's a chance that Doc just decides to double LaMarcus Aldridge the whole time. Because if he doesn't, and he lets LaMarcus Aldridge go one-on-one with Spencer Hawes, it's going to be hilarious. It's going to be a massacre if the Clippers don't double-team LaMarcus Aldridge. If they give LaMarcus Aldridge one-on-one against Spencer Hawes, goodness gracious, that's not an ideal situation for Spencer Hawes. Damian Lillard, I definitely think that Chris Paul is going to... This is a tough one because Chris Paul plays excellent defense, but Damian Lillard is such a good basketball player. Chris Paul is probably only going to hinder him a little bit. Look for Damian Lillard to get around 40 fantasy points in this one. Look for Chris Paul to get around 55, 60 fantasy points in this one. I mean, it's just his job with his team right now. Chris Paul doesn't have a choice. Neither does DeAndre Jordan. If the Clippers are going to win this game, Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan are going to have joke games. Like, that's just the way it is. So target them accordingly. I mean, Chris Paul could probably end up being your top point guard of the night. Now that DeAndre Jordan is 9,000 on DraftKings, he's more of a tournament play for me. 9K is a lot to pay for a center. He's been doing excellent, so hopefully he'll continue that. But DeAndre has sort of shifted into my tournament play as opposed to the cash game play. Wesley Matthews, perimeter scorers against the Clippers are always solid plays. Don't feel bad about playing Wesley Matthews tonight. And last game, we've got Bucks versus Warriors. It's going to be a quick one. As far as the Bucks go, on DraftKings, the Greek freak, Giannis, is probably a little too pricey for me. If you're playing on FanDuel, he's an excellent target. I mean, your Warriors are definitely playable, but Steve Kerr has mentioned more than once in the recent days that he wants to get his starters some rest. So knowing that, proceed with caution. More probably tournament plays only for the Warriors tonight. That's about all I'm seeing for the game tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Did a nice little quick breakdown for your 13-game slate, and best of luck with your contest.